It is round 12 of the World Chess Championship for 2024. We have Liren, current world champion, against Gukesh, who took the lead in the last round on round 11. But will Ding today be able to make a comeback and tie up the scores once again? Let's hop into it. Ding starting out with the white pieces, looking for a fight. He plays c4. And we have e6 from Gukesh, a little g3, going for a little Catalan type setup from Liren. We get d5, bishop g2, encouraging Gukesh to take on c4. Now, the point here is that, this has been played several times. You've got queen a4 to immediately win the pawn back after knight d7, queen c4, and you have a very nice active bishop here, and you're going to get nice development with knight c3, maybe d4, e4, knight f3, bishop out, castles, all this fun stuff. But Gukesh says, no thanks, I'm just going to play knight f6 and d4 to close it all down. We have castles from white here, knight c6, and we just get some developing moves. We'll skip past them a little bit, but e3 starting a little early confrontation here. Possible trades happening in the center where you could take like this, go for a queen trade, and now you have a nice rook on the open file here, and after bishop e7, maybe b3, bishop b2, and black is going to have to castle, and you're just doing pretty well with some better activity, a bit of a lead in development there. Now, Gukesh does not take the pawn on e3, instead decides to play the move bishop to e7. Now he takes and plays e5. So he waits a move, he doesn't take right away, instead he decides to develop a little bit, but after d3, he could go for something like e5 here, and then, after takes, you get a nice annoying pawn on d4. It's pretty well defended by the knight. You can maybe play c5 later, although that would open up the light square bishop a little bit here. So there's a lot of ways that this could go. I mean, it's obviously the opening where 7 moves in, and there's a million different things that could happen in this game as of this point. But instead of any of that, he decides to take on e3 now. We have bishop takes e3, recapturing the pawn while also developing a piece. This is a very good thing to do. If you can ever develop a piece while gaining a tempo or recapturing another piece, then that's usually a good thing, because it's kind of doing two things at once, right? Which is usually good in chess. Now, you could also make an argument for f takes e3 to open up the rook a little bit and maybe get a nice center here, but that's not what Ding wanted to do. It is better to take with the bishop. So he does. And then we have e5 opening up this light squared bishop, so it wasn't living a very sad existence here, blocked by the e6 pawn. Decides to open up his bishops. We get knight c3, castles, and rook to e1. So Ding is just making small improvements at this point, right? He's developing his pieces. He's moving the rook to the file to maybe put some pressure on the e5 pawn later on. Maybe we're going to get some queen c2, queen d2 to connect the rooks, and we're going to see what happens. Maybe some h3, king h2. Just some slight improvements. This isn't really a game where you win right away, right? This is going to be an improvement upon improvement type of game until one side is going to crash through. Hopefully, right? Spoilers, one side does crash through. Now, we do have h6 here. Gukesh spending quite a bit of time on this move, a little over 15 minutes. 15 minutes and 34 seconds playing h6. Now, the computer didn't love this move. It was one of the better moves, but it much preferred something like, let's see, instead of h6, let me find that again here. My apologies. Instead of h6, it preferred something like rook e8 or bishop e6, developing pieces rather than just pushing a pawn, which is good advice for even lower rated players, right? Instead of just pushing h6, maybe preventing bishop g5, or it's just also a strange move. Maybe you're hoping to drop the bishop back, or maybe bring the knight around this. It doesn't do a whole lot when you still got pieces that need to get into the game, right? So focus on development before you start pushing random pawns, especially in front of your king. But I said in the last video, these guys are 1,000 points higher rated than me, so, anything I say, it has no relevance whatsoever, but maybe it does. Who knows? Who's to say? Not me. We have h6 and a3, so Ding is responding with pushing a pawn one square. Hopefully, trying to go for b4 to get some very nice pawns over here, take up a lot of space on the board. Now, Gukesh plays another move that isn't quite approved of by the engine. The engine prefers, again, like rook e8, and then allowing b4, because you drop the bishop back to f8 to open up the rook here, you put on e8, and maybe queen c2, you develop a bishop, and we get something like this. A piece could get traded here, and you're kind of chilling. You got the bishop pair. White is a bit better, got a bit more space, and, the rooks are pretty nice, and maybe trying to get for d4 eventually, maybe pressure on the e5 pawn. But again, the bishop pair, and black has no, obvious weaknesses at this point, at least from my perspective. But none of that happens. Instead, when Ding plays the move a3, Gukesh decides I'm going to stop b4 and I'm going to play a5. But here's the thing. This allows Ding to just keep chilling, right? Because a5, okay, cool. But that didn't work towards developing any pieces and getting a bigger presence on the board, right? So it allows Ding to just continue making small improvements. Like I said, h3, king h2. Now, here the computer, again, likes rook to e8. Rook to e8. It's been shouting this move for quite a while. Either that or playing a4, really preventing b4, because you can always take en passant, which would be forced, of course. Now, king h2 and rook b8, which, rook b8, maybe trying to get for this. You're also getting off of this diagonal. That can be a common idea when the light squared bishop is being cheatoed over here, because you're just getting out of the way. Maybe playing for this, or b6, just getting everything off the diagonal at some point. So this bishop is kind of useless. Is kind of the hope, the dream. But we get queen c2, like I said, connecting the rooks here. Very good. They now defend each other. And we finally get rook e8. Okay, knight b5. Now in come the white pieces. Now Ding is down a bit on the clock at this point. You see, he is down. He's got 53 minutes against an hour and 67 minutes. The knight is coming in. Plenty of time on the clock, but it is only move 15, and they don't get extra time until move 40. So we have 25 more moves to go before they get extra time. So that's kind of been a trend in this tournament, or in this match, is that they get pretty low on time, and they have to make a lot of moves before the extra time kicks in, and they usually just end up playing a bunch of moves fast, and chaos ensues. Now, we get knight b5, and bishop f5, very good, targeting d3. Okay, we bring a rook to the center, very nice, very natural. And we get the knight dropping back to d7 here. Now, Gukesh spent 2 minutes on this move, moving the knight backwards, blocking the queen, and just removing the knight from the center. I guess the point, maybe he wants to get to c5, maybe b6, maybe get the bishop to f6. But dropping the knight back is not the best way to go. It is a bit better maybe to go bishop f8, dropping the bishop back so you get the rook opening up here on the e-file, and you've got some nice presence on the center lines. But instead, we do get knight back to d7 and another retreating move, bishop to g6. Now, you see the advantage climbing for Ding. At this point, Gukesh not feeling too great, right? If you're moving pieces back like this, you're usually not feeling too hot. You're kind of anticipating your opponent is about to do something that you really don't like, so you're kind of preparing for it. You're like, okay, I'm going to take a step back and brace myself for the storm that's incoming. Because guess what? Guess what? A few moves later, a storm is coming. We get bishop to g6 and d4. Ding is striking, just like the lightning in this storm. I don't know why I'm on this storm kick, but anyway. He's ready to explode the board, right? And Gukesh says, no, No thanks. I'm not interested in exploding the board. You have two very nice rooks in the center with a queen to help it out. You've got a very nice knight here eyeing my position. You've got the bishop ready to open up at a moment's notice when the knight jumps in tactically. Yeah, so not interested in that. So Gukesh decides I'm going to plug the center here with e4 and try to maneuver my pieces with a closed center. But here's the thing. These pawns are very nice. They're going to keep going. Nothing's stopping those bad boys. Now we get knight back to g1 because it was under attack. And where else are you really going to go? Right? Like you don't want to go here because then, you know, these pawns are, this isn't what we wanted, right? This pawn is going to be a bit weak unless you can like somehow get this, but that's not really what you were going for. And you don't want to go this way because then, you know, this is also not what you want. You don't want to open up your king and have horrible pawns. You're just going to be worse in an endgame there. These pawns suck. And then you also don't want to go here because that just hangs a knight. So where else are you going to go but drop back to g1? We have a knight to b6 and queen c3, bishop f6. So bishop f6 eyeing d4, right? Because the pawn is, you know, kind of pinning or pinned to the queen here. So you're x-raying the queen. That's kind of the point. And then Ding decides to just drop back to c2. Now, he could have gone to c2 on this move, but instead he goes queen c3. Maybe debate bishop f6. Who knows? He's just chilling, right? Ding chilling. He's just vibing, making moves, trying to get to the 40th move. He knows he's better, and he knows that, you know, making a couple of queen moves like this is not going to make him suddenly worse, right? So he's just making moves. Now, the computer, and if you ever review a chess game with a computer, especially if you're lower rated, like I'm 17, 1800 rapid on the chess.com, and every time I play a game, it tells me I'm the worst chess player to ever exist, and I'm sure you could relate. Now, this line I'm about to show you is 15 moves long, and I'll try and go through it as fast as possible, but it is absolute garbage. It is nonsense. It's a lot of the top moves from the computer, at least at the low depth I was looking at, and it shows why the move f5 here was better for black. Or not better for black, but it was better than bishop f6. Why f5? f5 to me looks wild because your king, right? Like your king is just open. Now, I guess the point is really just to solidify this e4 pawn, but I don't know. I'm worried about something like pawn pushes and this diagonal, something, the pawn rolling down the board still at this point, and maybe like the knight getting in this way. Now the e6 square is weaker because the f pawn was put, like, this is wild to me. I'm sure someone higher rated could explain it a bit better, but I'm going to show you an absolute garbage variation from the engine. Are you ready? Because you're not. I know you're not, but here we go anyway. f5. Okay. Bishop f4. Makes sense. We attack c7. Okay, we defend c7. So far, so good. Knight e2, let's say. Let's say white just develops a piece. Now, that's not the best move, mind you. Best move is like f3 or b3. Now, but let's say the knight goes to e2. Bishop f7, d5, and bishop f6. Okay. Yeah, this makes sense. We attack the knight and our queen, you know, intermezzo here, we attack the queen. Now, obviously, you deal with the fact that your queen is hanging, right? No, the engine says that white is better if you play dc6. You sack the queen. Now, obviously, it's because you counterattack black's queen, right? Because of the rook here. If you didn't see that, now you do, right? You win the piece, and you're going to do this, right? So if takes, you're going to take, right? So if they take your queen, you're obviously going to take the queen back, right? No. Instead, you just take the bishop back and say, you can keep your queen. I don't need a queen. I'm down 3 points of material. I don't care. Queen for a knight and a bishop? Pfft, child's play. Because guess what? This pawn on b7 is a monster. So the rook has to go to b8 to defend it. Otherwise, you're just going to, you know, crash through with the pawn there. And the rook was under attack as well. Knight c7. So now we're just taking stuff. Now the rook can take on b7, but you get the exchange here. And now all of a sudden material is equal. Okay, the rooks are very active here on the center files, and this c pawn is about to march up the board because we get c5 attacking the knight. Let's say the knight jumps forward. You can you can like, this is wild. This is wild stuff. Like, what? It's just you just give up the knight to play c6. You just give up the knight to play c6. You know why? Because then you can take on e4. And the pawn marches up the board on the c file, and it's about to promote. And it's just, oh my goodness, the queen's got to move, right? Because you were attacking the queen. Then we get the rooks doubling on the d file. The rook can take here, but then you take the rook. You had to take the pawn, otherwise you're gonna get this. So you got to take it, give up the rook. And white is winning here. Like, this is why engines are trash. This is why engines are trash. That's not what happened, though. Gukesh played bishop f6. We get queen back to c2. a4, finally. The computer was saying a4 for a little bit. Maybe not as the best move, but one of them. It prevents b4 because you can always take en passant, as I said earlier. And then here we have knight coming back into the game to e2 to f4. And you kind of got to chop the knight. The knight's really strong there. It's trying to do this to open up the king, maybe get into d5, you know, maybe do some other nasty stuff. I guess you're going to take here and then take here, yeah? So you got to deal with that. You got to chop it. But now the bishop is very nice for white. White now has the bishop pair, which is very good, especially because the position is fairly open, and it's going to keep opening up as pawns start rolling down the board, because we have rook to c8 defending c7 here because it was under attack, and we get queen back to the queen has gone to c3. I think it went to c2 to d2 to c3 to c2 back to c3. This is wild. That's the only. Let's go back. Look at the queen's journey. The queen goes to c2 to d2 to c3 to c2 and back to c3. That's all the queen has done this game, is just go boop, 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 boop. Yeah, that's all it's done. That's all you got to do, right? What Daniel Naroditsky says, that the queen is like a supporting actress. You know, it's not the lead. It's a supporting character, and you know, it kind of supports the rest of the position, while the knight and the bishops and the rooks are kind of the leads here. The queen is just kind of the glue holding it all together, and it's ready to, you know, take part once the position gets a bit more open. Now, we get knight back to b8, which is not good. It's not great. The computer, again, liking f6, maybe to drop the bishop back this way, something control these squares over here, but it's bad already. We get knight back to b8. Giving up a rook, by the way. Giving up the exchange. Like, the rook is trapped there. You can't jump over the pieces and castle over, you know, all of this. So Gukesh doing that desperately to try and create some kind of play. But we get d5, queen d7, d6. So Ding he's coming, right? The pawn is going down the board. We get c5 trying to close it all up, but knight c7, and you win the pawn on e4 here. And the bishop just drops back, saying, thank you very much for the pawn. Yummy, yummy, nom, nom. And we get the knight dropping back here, so you're getting out of the position. Now, normally doubled pawns are not the best, but sometimes they can be. In this case, they are. Especially in very dynamic positions, they can be pretty good. Because, well, you control a lot of good squares, and they're both passed, and they're very well supported. So you win c5 as well. Yeah, so you're up 2 pawns at this point, and you're just getting in, right? The pawn is just rolling down the board, and there's kind of no point here. And the game ends in style. Ding Liren plays rook takes g7, and Gukesh resigns, because if you take the rook, you get bishop takes f8 check, you take, and you queen, and you know, you've got to block this way, and it's going to be mate. You don't even have to take the queen right away. You play bishop here, or queen here, you know, queen f7, and then like queen h6, king e8, and you give the check here, queen f8, and then you can take, and then king d7, and then queen to d8 is mate. What a mate, by the way. The pawn taking away these squares. This is, yeah. So Gukesh didn't want to play all of that out, so he decided to resign at rook takes g7. What a game. What a game. Both of them have like 3 minutes on the clock at this point. They almost made it to move 40. This was move 39, and they have 3 minutes on the clock. So the score is tied up. It is 6-6, round 12. So if the games end in draws moving forward, or it's like 1-1, then we're going to a tiebreak, which I believe is a rapid format. So we'll see how that goes. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you as always, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.